Why are so many men suffering in silence, carrying the weight of stress, anxiety, and depression without asking for help? Why does a culture that celebrates toughness and independence leave so many feeling alone when life becomes overwhelming? And why, even with growing awareness of mental health in America, do countless men still feel like admitting vulnerability is a weakness? These questions lie at the heart of today's crisis in men's mental health. Across the United States, conversations are finally breaking through, with men speaking more openly about their struggles. But the old script, the one that said a real man never cries, never falters, never admits pain, still lingers. This is where the philosophy of Stoicism enters as both a challenge and a lifeline. Too often misunderstood as cold suppression of emotions, Stoicism actually offers a path not of denial but of resilience, not of bottling up but of mastering the mind, not of weakness but of strength. And for men seeking a healthier way to navigate stress in 2025 America, this ancient wisdom could not be more timely. The state of men's mental health in the US is sobering. Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death among men, with middle-aged men at especially high risk. Rates of depression and anxiety are climbing, and younger generations are no exception. Gen Z men, raised in a culture of digital comparison, economic uncertainty, and shifting gender expectations, are reporting unprecedented levels of stress. And yet, despite these numbers, many still hesitate to reach out for help. Cultural conditioning tells them to man up, to push through, to stay silent. The irony is that this silence magnifies suffering. What men need is not the old version of toughness, denial, and suppression, but a redefinition of strength, resilience, self-awareness, and acceptance. That is exactly what Stoicism provides. Stoicism begins by teaching that life will bring suffering, loss, and challenge. To be human is to face hardship. Pretending otherwise is denial. The Stoics did not hide from pain, they prepared for it. Epictetus, once a slave, endured physical hardship, yet found freedom in mastering his thoughts. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, carried the burden of war and leadership, yet sought calm within his own mind. Seneca faced political exile and betrayal, but used his words to remind others that suffering is part of the human condition. None of them confused resilience with silence. None of them equated strength with denial. Instead, they modeled a way of living where emotions were acknowledged but not allowed to dominate, where hardship was met with courage, and where peace was found not in escape but in perspective. This is a powerful message for American men today. Too often, Stoic is used as a synonym for emotional numbness. But true Stoicism is not about ignoring emotions. It is about understanding them. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily to himself about his fears, frustrations, and sorrows. He did not hide them. He examined them, questioned them, and placed them within the larger frame of nature and duty. That is the Stoic path, not silence, but clarity. For men facing the storm of modern stress, this clarity is essential. It means acknowledging pain without being consumed by it, expressing vulnerability without shame, and choosing action over paralysis. Consider how this philosophy could transform the conversation around men's mental health in America. Right now, too many men treat therapy or opening up as a last resort, something to be pursued only after crisis. But the Stoic approach would normalize reflection as daily practice. Just as Marcus Aurelius journaled at night, men today could set aside time to write, reflect, and confront their thoughts honestly. This is not weakness, it is training. It builds resilience, the way exercise builds strength. It turns vulnerability into discipline. In this light, therapy is not an admission of defeat, but an alignment with Stoic wisdom, seeking tools to master the mind. The American definition of masculinity is shifting, and Stoicism can play a central role in shaping it. For too long, toughness was measured in Stoic silence, the wrong kind of Stoic. Men were told to carry burdens alone, to show no cracks, to be invulnerable. But invulnerability is an illusion. Everyone struggles. True toughness is the ability to face those struggles with courage, honesty, and discipline. Stoicism teaches that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. For men today, that might mean the courage to say, "I'm not okay." It might mean reaching out to a friend, a counselor, or a community. It might mean admitting exhaustion in a culture that glorifies endless grind. These acts are not weakness, they are Stoic resilience in practice. The rise of men's wellness initiatives in America shows this shift is already underway. From mental health campaigns targeting veterans, to podcasts where athletes and entrepreneurs speak openly about therapy, to Gen Z creators dismantling old stereotypes on TikTok, the message is spreading. Vulnerability is strength. And the Stoics provide the philosophical backbone to this movement. Epictetus taught that no shame should come from facing what is human. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that being part of humanity meant carrying burdens together, not in isolation. For modern men, hearing these voices can be liberating. They realize they are not alone. They realize that silence is not noble if it leads to despair. They realize that resilience is built not by denying emotion, but by facing it with wisdom. There is also a connection between men's mental health and the digital landscape. Many men escape into screens, gaming, endless scrolling, or online debates, not because they are lazy, but because they have no safe outlet for their pain. The online world becomes both distraction and prison. Stoicism offers a way to step back. It says, you do not need to be controlled by what others think of you, by every headline, by every argument. Peace lies in choosing what is within your control. For men online, this is radical. It means choosing to log off instead of feeding anxiety. It means choosing reflection over comparison. It means taking ownership of one's own inner state. By practicing this discipline, men can reclaim time, presence, and calm. The statistics make the urgency clear. Men are less likely than women to seek therapy, less likely to talk about depression, and more likely to die by suicide. These are not just numbers, they are fathers, brothers, sons, friends. Behind each statistic is a story of silence, of pressure, of feeling trapped. The old script of masculinity is failing. It is time to write a new one. Stoicism provides the pen. It offers men a philosophy that honors strength but redefines it. Strength is not pretending to be unbreakable. Strength is choosing resilience, presence, and wisdom. Strength is caring for mental health as much as physical health. Strength is not silence, but courageous honesty. Imagine a future where American men adopt Stoicism not as cold suppression, but as warm discipline. A young man in Los Angeles begins journaling each night, reflecting instead of scrolling. A father in Ohio opens up to a friend about his anxiety, seeing it not as shameful, but as human. A veteran in Texas practices Stoic breathing exercises to manage trauma, reminding himself that peace is still possible. These are not distant fantasies, they are practical realities if men embrace this wisdom. And in embracing it, they do not lose their toughness, they redefine it. They move from fragile silence to resilient strength. The challenge for men's mental health is not simply that men feel pain. It is that they are often taught not to acknowledge it. From childhood, boys hear messages like, be strong, don't cry, and man up. On the surface, these phrases appear to encourage resilience, but in practice they discourage honesty. They condition men to equate silence with strength and vulnerability with weakness. Over time, this creates an emotional prison. Men learn to wear masks, to hide their anxiety behind humor, their sadness behind anger, their exhaustion behind busyness. But the longer these masks are worn, the heavier they become. The statistics reflect this hidden weight. High rates of substance abuse, loneliness, and suicide are evidence that denial is not resilience, it is corrosion. Stoicism offers a path out of this prison, but only when understood correctly. The Stoic path is not about denying emotions, but about mastering them. It is about facing reality, however difficult, with clarity and courage. One of the most important Stoic practices for men today is learning to distinguish between what is in their control and what is not. Epictetus taught that this distinction is the foundation of freedom. Many men carry unbearable pressure because they try to control outcomes that are impossible to master. How others perceive them, whether the economy collapses, whether they are always successful, whether they never falter. When sleep is lost and anxiety builds, it is often because they are wrestling with the uncontrollable. Stoicism says, let go of what is not yours. Control your discipline, your choices, your honesty, your courage. Release the rest. For a man conditioned to feel responsible for everything, this truth is liberating. It shifts the burden from impossible perfection to practical responsibility, and that shift is often the first step toward healing. The American workplace is one environment where this shift is desperately needed. Men often feel pressure to prove themselves through endless hours, constant availability, and silent endurance of stress. Hustle culture tells them that their worth is measured in output. But this mentality eats away at mental health. Burnout, anxiety, and broken families are often the cost. The Stoics provide another perspective. Work is important, but it does not define the soul. Marcus Aurelius, while leading armies and governing an empire, reminded himself that no title or task was worth his peace of mind. He wrote that people exist not for constant work, but for living according to nature and virtue. For men today, this could mean setting boundaries around work hours, prioritizing health and relationships, and rejecting the myth that exhaustion is a badge of honor. These are Stoic acts of discipline that redefine toughness, not as grinding endlessly, but as protecting one's balance and integrity. Relationships are another area where Stoic wisdom transforms men's mental health. Many men struggle to open up to partners, friends, or family members out of fear of appearing weak. But Stoicism teaches that humans are social creatures, interconnected and interdependent. Marcus Aurelius described humanity as a single body, where each person is a limb. To isolate is to weaken the whole. For men, learning to share honestly with trusted people is not weakness. It is fulfilling their nature as part of a larger human family. When a man tells his partner he is struggling, when he tells a friend he feels anxious, when he accepts support from his community, he is living more stoically than if he hides in silence. He is choosing truth over illusion, resilience over fragility. The digital landscape also complicates men's mental health. Social media often portrays unrealistic versions of masculinity: wealth, power, physical perfection, endless confidence. Young men who compare themselves to these images often feel inadequate. They believe they must match an impossible standard or risk failure. This fuels depression and self-doubt. But Stoicism dismantles this illusion. Seneca warned against living by the measures of others. Epictetus taught that our value lies not in possessions or reputation, but in our character. For men scrolling through feeds filled with comparison, this wisdom is crucial. It tells them, you are not defined by what you see online. You are defined by your actions, your integrity, your courage. This reframing protects mental health by shifting identity away from fragile externals towards stable internals. There is also the question of anger, which often masks deeper struggles in men. Many men express frustration more easily than sadness because anger feels powerful while sadness feels vulnerable. Yet unchecked anger destroys relationships, health, and inner peace. The Stoics saw anger as one of the most destructive emotions, a form of temporary madness. Seneca even wrote an entire essay on anger, warning that it consumes the one who carries it more than the one it targets. For men, learning to pause, reflect, and respond rather than react is a Stoic practice that transforms mental health. It does not mean suppressing emotion, but understanding it. Anger often hides fear, insecurity, or grief. By acknowledging these roots, men can heal instead of harm. The Stoic discipline of journaling, reflection, and mindfulness becomes a tool to uncover and address what lies beneath the anger. The role of fathers also connects deeply with Stoic teaching. In America, many men struggle with the legacy of absent or emotionally distant fathers. They were taught toughness without tenderness. But Stoicism, properly understood, values both discipline and compassion. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, honored his adoptive father Antoninus for balancing firmness with kindness, strength with humanity. This model is desperately needed today. Men who embrace Stoic resilience can break cycles of silence by becoming fathers who teach not only toughness, but also emotional honesty. They can show their sons that real strength includes the courage to be vulnerable. They can show their daughters that masculinity can mean stability, not suppression. In this way, Stoicism does not just heal individuals, but generations. Another dimension is community. Men often suffer in isolation because they lack safe spaces to connect. Traditional expectations discourage emotional sharing among male peers. Yet Stoicism insists that virtue is not solitary. Friendship and community were essential to the Stoics. Seneca wrote letters to friends exploring his struggles, sharing reflections, and offering guidance. These letters are proof that even the wisest needed connection. For men today, building small circles of honest conversation is profoundly Stoic. It can mean joining a men's group, connecting with a friend for regular talks, or participating in communities that normalize openness. In these spaces, men learn they are not alone. They see that others share their struggles, and in that realization, their burdens become lighter. The modern mental health movement is beginning to embrace these ideas. Campaigns encourage men to seek help, athletes speak openly about depression, and younger generations challenge old stereotypes. Yet, without a philosophical framework, these movements risk being dismissed as trends. Stoicism provides that framework. It offers ancient credibility, practical tools, and timeless wisdom. When paired with modern therapy, science, and community support, it creates a powerful foundation for change. Men no longer have to choose between silence and despair. They can choose resilience, grounded in philosophy, and live through practice. As America continues to grapple with stress, inequality, and cultural change, men will need anchors to hold them steady. Stoicism can be that anchor. It does not promise a life free from pain, but it promises that pain need not destroy. It does not offer escape from responsibility, but it clarifies what responsibility truly means. For men, this clarity is freedom. It means no longer carrying burdens that were never theirs. It means focusing on courage, wisdom, and honesty. It means living as whole humans, not hollow masks. The story of men's mental health in America is the story of a culture at a crossroads. For too long, toughness has been defined by silence, by the ability to suppress, by the refusal to admit pain. This definition has left too many men isolated, trapped, and broken. The statistics on depression, substance abuse, and suicide are not abstract. They are proof of the cost of clinging to the old script. But there is another path, one that draws on both ancient wisdom and modern awareness. That path is resilience. Not fragile silence, but resilient strength. And Stoicism provides the philosophy to walk it. The essence of Stoicism is not about pretending emotions do not exist. It is about meeting them with discipline, perspective, and clarity. Marcus Aurelius did not write his meditations to deny his struggles. He wrote them to face his struggles, to reflect on fear, anger, and grief without letting them dominate. Epictetus did not preach denial. He preached freedom. Freedom from the illusion that we must control everything. Freedom from being slaves to emotions. Freedom from fear of vulnerability. For men today, this is revolutionary. It means they do not need to wear masks. They do not need to pretend. They can face their pain honestly and still be strong. Because strength is not the absence of struggle, but the courage to meet it. This redefinition of toughness has the power to reshape families, communities, and entire cultures. Imagine fathers who show their children not just discipline, but tenderness. Imagine friends who can talk openly about anxiety instead of hiding behind jokes. Imagine workplaces where men are not punished for setting boundaries, but respected for protecting balance. Each of these changes begins with individuals who embrace resilience over silence, who choose stoic courage over cultural conditioning. And each choice chips away at the stigma that keeps men suffering in the shadows. The Stoics remind us that no one lives for himself alone. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we are all citizens of the same universe, limbs of the same body. Men who hide in silence do not just harm themselves, they weaken the body of humanity. By contrast, men who share honestly, who care for their mental health, who live with balance, strengthen the whole. They set examples that ripple outward. A man who seeks help teaches his son that courage includes honesty. A man who manages his anger with reflection strengthens his marriage. A man who journals his struggles instead of suppressing them brings clarity to his workplace. These acts may seem small, but they are transformative. The digital age amplifies the urgency of this transformation. Social media pressures men to perform unrealistic versions of masculinity, wealthy, flawless, endlessly confident. But as the Stoics warned, comparison is a thief of peace. Seneca wrote that he who is everywhere is nowhere. For men scrolling through curated feeds, the result is disconnection from their own truth. The Stoic remedy is presence. Focus on what is yours. Let go of what is not. This discipline protects mental health by anchoring identity in character, not comparison. For Gen Z men especially, learning this distinction may be the difference between despair and resilience. Therapy, community, and reflection are modern expressions of Stoic practice. Therapy is not an admission of failure, but a disciplined pursuit of clarity. Community is not weakness, but recognition that we are social beings. Reflection is not indulgence, but training for the mind. Each of these practices aligns perfectly with Stoicism, and together they form a toolkit for resilience. A man who engages in them is not less tough, he is tougher because he chooses strength grounded in wisdom rather than illusion. As this new definition of toughness spreads, the stigma around men's mental health begins to erode. Already, athletes, veterans, and creators are speaking openly, modeling vulnerability as courage. The Stoic voices of the past echo through their words, Epictetus saying, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it." Marcus Aurelius reminding us, "If it is endurable, then endure it." Seneca urging us, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." These truths, carried across centuries, still apply, and they offer men today a chance to live with strength that is both tough and tender, disciplined and human. So as we close, the invitation is simple. If you're a man watching this and carrying silent burdens, know this: you are not alone. Your pain does not make you weak. Your honesty will make you stronger. You do not need to keep proving yourself through silence. You can choose resilience, reflection, and connection. You can live as the Stoics did, facing hardship without fear, embracing discipline without denial, and seeking peace not in suppression but in wisdom. And if you found value in this message, if it spoke to something inside you that has long been waiting to be acknowledged, then take the next step with us. Subscribe to Think Fresh Daily for more videos that merge ancient philosophy with modern struggles. Like this video if it gave you insight or encouragement. Share it with a friend, a brother, a father, or a son who needs to hear that resilience is not silence and that strength is not suppression. Together, we can build a culture where men no longer suffer alone, where toughness is redefined as resilient strength, and where Stoic wisdom guides us all toward healthier, fuller lives. The time to carry masks is over. The time to carry wisdom has come.